The Richard C. Munroe Foundation in Atlanta, Georgia, is just one of the more than 36,000 family foundations across the United States.
It's where several people in the family usually put money into a pot. That pot is a perpetual pot. It can grow over time, and you actually want it to grow over time so that your giving can grow over time. And you get some family members together, they are your board, and you decide what your mission is. Just like with it, like that's what I meant, it's a business. You've got to decide what your mission is. The better you can define it, not only for yourselves, but for those who are going to come and ask for money, the better off you're going to be. So you decide your mission, you form your board, and you go to work.
We really believe at the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation that we exist to build community and strengthen the community. And so there you're talking a lot about building unrestricted funds, broad field of interest funds. So, but having said that, I mean, it's not just about the development, it's the ability that we have because of our broad knowledge of the community, because of all the different actors that we interplay with, whether it's, you know, the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofits.
When we looked at each other and we said, where's the real need? At-risk communities, the very young, the very old. And that's where we center most of our giving around, not that there aren't exceptions.
Like most community foundations, we allow our donor advised funds to grant anywhere in the United States. We'll help donors direct them somewhere if that is really what they're interested in. But most of our donors, about 85% of those donor advised grant dollars each year stay in our community. So they're taking advantage of the fact that they can, you know, make a grant recommendation anywhere, but most of them choose to focus their philanthropy here.
I have a one-page grant application because we don't want to read 60 different pages where you are not going to increase your chances of getting a grant from us by increasing the poundage of the grant, you know. And I think there are many people who actually do work that way. We're quick to move, and I think that's really one of the very valuable things, and just less bureaucracy and more willing to get out there and network to see the smaller programs.
Specificity isn't going to help ensure that people are more faithful to your intentions. The notion isn't that I only want to fund arts programs and they must be music programs and they must be in Grand Rapids and they must be gifts of less than $10,000 and this is the way it will go. That kind of specificity isn't going to help the people.
So I think with smaller family foundations, you're also able to see need a little bit easier and move on it quicker. And then there's always the fact that you were talking about disagreements between me and my board members. They're limited. I promise you, if you start to get more than 3 people in a room, with every person you add, the difference of opinion goes up exponentially. It becomes harder to get anything done.
You want to ensure that your money's going to those things that you intend it to and that it's doing the most good it can. Because you're probably giving precious, scarce resources, probably in communities where there's no such thing as a small grant. And you want to make sure that those investments are as well placed as you can possibly make them. And that does require you to think carefully about what it is you're trying to do and to make sure that to the extent you can assess whether or not you're achieving that.
There's no doubt that by giving smaller grants, we're able to give more grants. Not only that, many young charitable organizations have trouble getting credibility. Sometimes, if they have us doing the due diligence and putting the rubber stamp on them, it's easy for them to solicit from other foundations.
We understand there's a need, there's opportunity. And so every grant cycle, we formally have a program where those donor advised funds can leverage their dollars along with ours.
Now, it is a problem in a way. I'm telling you, the first time you give to a Catholic charity, the next year you have grants from every Catholic charity in the United States because their software indicates who every foundation gave to, and they'll solicit everybody on that list. So just from a practical point of view, you have to be a little careful or you're just going to get inundated.
The key to what we do is we engage in a lot of conversations with our grantees. What are you facing? What are you hoping to accomplish? What's getting in your way? with folks who aren't our grantees, but nevertheless have a stake in community success. So elected officials, folks like that, and community members in general. I think any foundation, any philanthropic effort is only as good as the knowledge that it has about the community that it's trying to serve, or the purposes that it's trying to accomplish.
What we have to do is really work with our grantees, try and build up a relationship with grantees that isn't just about the financial transaction. Clearly that dynamic is real, but the more we can build a three-dimensional relationship, more we can conduct site visits and see not just the executive director, but are there interns at your office, and where do they sit, and who are they, and can we go see their work?
The way we determine our funding priorities is through this listening and learning, and then a lot of internal conversation with our board of directors, our board of trustees. We sort. We have a model of grant making that some foundations have, others have other models, but our model of grant making is mostly dependent on folks making applications to us. So we have a procedure, and there's a deadline, and you complete a proposal and you say, here's what I would do with the money. And so we do most of our evaluation about the actual grants that we're going to make in response to those applications that we get. That application process, though, that competitive process, is driven by a larger vision of what do we want to accomplish in the community.
And it's terrific to be able to be involved and be supportive of so many different artists, art projects, community-based organizations, to work with other funding colleagues, to try and be helpful in a particular instance where our support is helpful, but also to make contributions to the whole field.
It's a subjective process. We're always answering questions like, can we have greater impact by making a smaller number of large grants versus a larger number of small grants? We wrestle with, do we want to take the initiative to lead some effort and bring our money with it and organize folks around that initiative, or do we want to rely on the expertise that's already there in the community and instead just fund the good work that's out there? And so it's an ongoing process.
The thing I love the most about my job, and the thing that sometimes I hate about my job, is that the phone is ringing all the time, and emails are coming in all the time, and I don't know who that next phone call is going to be from or what that next email is going to be about.
We have a process that's driven by a panel of volunteers from the community, from our board of trustees. They read every proposal front and back. They come from all walks of life, and they knock heads around a table, trying to, and they're always able to come to a consensus about what are the things that we want to fund.
So when we invite somebody to apply for a grant, we don't just send them an application and say, send it back to us, and then, it's like college where you might get a thick envelope in 6 months or a thin one. We have workshops, and we'll go and teach people how to write a good application. We get evaluated by our managers at the foundation on our ability to be responsive to grantees.
A fair amount of the work that I do is in the grant-making process, but probably an equally large amount of the work I do is outside of the grant-making process. So I may interact with a grantee in the environment of a grant application. We want to accomplish such and such. How can we strengthen our proposal? What do where are we in the process? Those kind of conversations.
The more focused we can be about understanding what are the make or break issues, what are the real indicators of whether an organization that is seeking support will be successful.
Virtually every grant-making process that I've been a part of, in the end, is trying to answer the same basic couple of questions. What is this project going to accomplish? Is that worth accomplishing? And are you likely to be able to accomplish it?
I think in philanthropy they call it grantee perceptions. I think in the rest of the world we call it customer service. We absolutely place a very, very high value on building up a relationship with grantees that is respectful, and the more honest and more candid we can be in our discussions with them and in the feedback we get from them. Our theory is that the smarter decisions we'll be able to make about how best to support them and to steward the foundation's resources.
That doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that we are experts in things. In fact, we know that we're not experts in things just because we have this money to grant. We try to gather the best information we can and in an imperfect process make the best judgment about where those dollars should go. But the people who are on the front lines applying for money know their world far better than we do. So we're always trying to balance having an appreciation for and a respect for the knowledge that these folks have, while at the same time exercising our own independent judgment about, what's the wisest investment for our dollars out there.